हरे कृष्णा। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा. So we welcome you all to the 5th day of this course, Self-Evaluation Tools on the Path of Bhakti, Part 2. So in this part we have primarily been discussing from the third shower of nectar, Tritiya Amrita Vrishti of the book Madhurya Kadambini. And for the last couple of days we have been discussing primarily on the offenses. So the reason why we were discussing offenses is because the third shower of nectar talks about this stage of anartha nivritti, or destruction of unwanted material desires. And we saw that unwanted material desires arise because of 4 reasons: dushkritotta anarthas, sukritotta anarthas, aparadhotta anarthas, and bhaktiotta anarthas. Sukritotta anarthas means desires unfavorable for devotional service arising from our past pious inclinations and pious lives. And Dushkritotta anarthas means anarthas or unfavorable desires arising out of our past sinful lives. And Bhaktiotta anarthas means unfavorable desires which arise from proper practice of bhakti. So proper practice of bhakti attracts people's attention. Along with that comes name, fame, glorification, facilities. When one starts completely carried away by those things, then that is a big obstacle in one's progress in devotional service. That is bhaktiyotta anarthas. But the most dangerous of these 4 kinds of anarthas is those desires which are born out of aparadas, because they stay for the longest. And we saw yesterday that the difference between sin and aparad is sin is considered as dhuli lepa and aparad is considered as vajra lepa. As committing a sinful activity for a devotee, being compelled by his past sinful vasanas, is just like a line drawn on a dusty table or something like that. It can be easily wiped out by proper practice of bhakti. But the damage that is done due to committing offenses, the 10 types of namaparad, is considered to be like vajralepa, like the mark of a thunderbolt on a mountain. It is very, very serious and extremely difficult to destroy. We saw that namaparad are those kinds of offenses which are caused due to a flawed attitude or an inimical attitude, an unfavorable attitude, mainly disrespect. Either it could be disrespect to Vaishnavas, disrespect to the Guru, disrespect to the Vedic literatures, disrespect to the holy name, and all these things. So primarily it is disrespect that causes these kind of anarthas. Of the 10 offenses to the holy name, which is primarily offense to Bhakti Devi, the first and one of the most deadliest of offenses is Vaishnava Ninda. Offending Vaishnavas, or to blaspheme a devotee who has dedicated his life for propagating the holy names of the Lord. So we have been extensively discussing about this the last 2 days, or you can say about 1.5 days. And today we have a small section of it left. We will see that, and before we move on to the second offense. So I will quickly go through some themes that we have touched upon. A very brief recap we will do. In Vaishnava Ninda, we saw a few themes. First is, what is the potency of a sadhu, especially a Uttamadhikari, and to a little less extent in a Madhyamadhikari also these potencies are there. We saw yesterday that how this, because he carries the Bhakti Shakti within his heart, anyone who comes near that Vaishnava actually experiences the power of that Bhakti Shakti which is there within his heart. And it really deeply impacts the heart of the receiver. So therefore, and that Bhakti Shakti is a combination of Samvit, Sandhini and Hladini potency, which are all parts of the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, just by living close to a Vaishnava, very soon devotion appears within the heart of that person who lives close to a Vaishnava. And such a person very quickly takes up to practicing devotional service with due diligence. So that is the potency of a sadhu. But who is a sadhu? Who is a Vaishnava? We saw that the Shastras speak about many different qualities of a Vaishnava. Dayalu, Sahishnu, Sama, Droha Shunya Vrata, merciful, tolerant, equal, truthfulness, purified heart, and so many such qualities we have seen. But the Shastras indicate that these are the secondary qualities of a sadhu. These are not the primary qualities of a sadhu. The primary quality of a sadhu is his complete or exclusive surrender to Krishna. Krishnaika Sharanam. So why is that called the primary quality and why are the other qualities called secondary? The other qualities are called secondary because the secondary qualities follow the primary quality. The primary quality has to be there. Then eventually in future, slowly but steadily the secondary qualities may follow. But if only the secondary qualities are there and the primary quality is not there, such a person cannot be accepted as a sadhu. So therefore, this kind of a division. Then we saw that how Varna and Ashrama and other such considerations do not decide whether who is a sadhu and who is not a sadhu. A sadhu can be outside the realm of Varnashram also. He may be a Chandala or an outcast also. So therefore, that does not decide who is a sadhu. The next theme that we saw was, because these primary and secondary qualities exist in a sadhu, sometimes without seeing the primary quality, when we just look for the secondary qualities, then we tend to criticize a sadhu. So therefore, seeing only the secondary qualities, despite that person possessing the primary quality, is to show that we don't have sufficient trust in the purifying potency of bhakti. If we have sufficient trust in the purifying potency of bhakti, then we will know that, oh, he is practicing bhakti, so practice of bhakti will purify his heart. So I need not judge him. We will see it in that way. So therefore, there are four main reasons why one judges a sadhu. One is either because of his caste by birth, or if he is from a low-born family, or sometimes before coming to Krishna consciousness, he might have lived a very sinful life. Or the third account is, after coming to Krishna consciousness, he might consider an unpremeditated, accidental sinful activity due to past vasanas. And the fourth reason is that there could be some present traces of past sinful activities performed. Prior to Krishna consciousness, like we saw about the tobacco stained teeth. He might have been chewing tobacco before coming to Krishna consciousness, and that must have created permanent stains in his teeth. And after coming to Krishna consciousness, one may say, oh, what kind of useless sadhu he is. He was chewing tobacco before coming to Krishna consciousness. We should not judge like that. So these are the four primary reasons, and the acharyas say even if all these reasons are there, one should still, these are insubstantial for judging a sadhu. So therefore Krishna says, I will personally ensure that I remove all these traces of sinful activities from his heart, so one should not judge him. Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati, Krishna says. So therefore, after developing taste for practicing bhakti, even if some traces of sinful tendencies may remain, one should perfectly understand that by practice of bhakti, those traces will vanish very soon. So therefore, we should give up this aam admi ka vichar, a common man's perception of looking only for secondary qualities, and actually we ourselves should develop the vichar of a Vaishnava. What is the vichar of a Vaishnava? Should be Krishna's vichar. How Krishna sees a sadhu, that is how a Vaishnava is supposed to see a sadhu. Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati. This should be our guiding light when we deal with devotees who may be practicing devotional service but still may have some unpleasant qualities. This should be our vichar. This is Krishna's vichar. We should share that vichar. What are the results of sadhu ninda? As we have seen in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Vaishnava aparadha is compared to Hathi Mata, mad elephant offense. It completely uproots the creeper of bhakti completely. So therefore, one should understand that one will directly come under the wrath of Krishna if we insult a Vaishnava or criticize a Vaishnava. And such a person goes to hell and is put under the care of Yamaraj. And we all know how Yamaraj cares for the people under him. And because such a person is spending his life spreading the glories of bhakti and holy name, therefore, to criticize such a sadhu is a serious offense. And what is the main reason for developing this unfavorable attitude towards sadhus? Why do we criticize sadhu? What is the chief reason? The acharyas say it is asat sangha. Asat sangha means non-devotional association. And we saw yesterday non-devotional association is of two types. One is Tri Sangha and then the second is Krishna Abhakta, non-devotee association. Stri Sangha, we saw Stri Sangha refers to two types. One is associating outside the marriage for the purpose of having sex. Or the second is within the marriage to be completely controlled by the partner only for mutual sense enjoyment. So both these are considered to be unfavorable Stri Sangha, and this kind of an association actually can turn our face away from Krishna and the Vaishnavas. We may start, like we have heard these famous stories about the persecution of devotees in the behind the Iron Curtain, Russia and USSR. We hear this story, very famous story, that how one time there was a police officer who actually liked the devotees who were imprisoned. So because the Russian government was at that time completely communist government, they wanted to stop all kinds of religious activities. So they arrested many devotees and put them behind bars in the Armenian prisons. And there was one particular policeman who actually had a liking for the devotees. But the problem with him was he was very much attached to his wife, and his wife did not like the devotees. So every day she used to tell him, if I will cooperate with you and I will allow you to enjoy with me only if you severely beat the devotees. So despite this person actually having an attraction for the devotees, appreciation for the devotees, just because he was completely controlled by his wife, he used to mercilessly beat the devotees. So, and eventually both of them died in an accident. So we see this, if one is too much henpecked and controlled by the attraction for the opposite sex, he loses all good intelligence, and one of the worst kind of bad intelligence is to start judging, criticizing, insulting, what to speak of physically assaulting devotees. And then the second type of asat sangha is to associate with people who are not devotees of the Lord. They are of three types: Mayavadis, Dharmadvajis or pretenders, and the third are atheists. So all Mayavadis are those who consider the form of the Lord to be material, or the absolute truth to have no form, no qualities, etc. And the pretenders are those who are just pretending to be devotees but actually have all kinds of ulterior motives. And atheists are those who plain do not believe the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So their association is very dangerous, and we had an elaborate discussion about in today's day and age, these kind of unfavorable, materialistic, Mayavadi and other such association comes through various kinds of affiliation to pious organizations, so-called pious organizations also, which may have seemingly devotional but actually very deep-rooted non-devotional sentiments. So when one starts associating with such organizations, very soon one starts finding faults within devotees association, because they will immediately start comparing devotees with with people of those organizations, and very soon we will start buying their value system. So we will judge devotees based on the value system that we have borrowed from that other organization. So we have to be very careful. So we had an elaborate discussion, I will not get into this. Then the next theme that we discussed was, how do we treat Vaishnavas? So we treat Vaishnavas by eagerly accepting the foot dust, foot wash and food remnants of a Vaishnava, because they are considered to be very auspicious. And but at the same time, one should treat a Vaishnava according to his level of Krishna conscious advancement in bhakti. We should not treat him according to his varna and ashrama, but one should appropriately treat a Vaishnava based on his advancement in bhakti. So according to this, there are three classes of Vaishnavas. We discussed about the Prakrita Bhakta, who has some sentimental faith towards the devotee, towards the deities, but he does not specifically appreciate the devotees. He may not give any special respect to the devotees. Archayam eva haraye, pujamya shraddhaye hate, natad bhakteshu chanyeshu, sabhakta prakrita smrita. He is considered a Prakrita Bhakta. So one should have a compassionate disposition towards him, seeing him as potential devotee. And one should try to be nice with him, gradually raise his consciousness through our association and bring him to the path of devotional service. Then the second higher devotee is the Madhyama Bhakta. Ishvare tadadineshu balisheshu dvishashtucha prema maitri kripa upeksha yak karoti sa Madhyama. So a Madhyama Bhakta, who is a sadhaka, pure devotional sadhaka, he has these four qualities of Ishvare prema, affection towards Krishna, tad adineshu maitri, friendship with the devotees, balisheshu kripa, and to the innocent he feels very compassionate and he wants to help them, bring them to Krishna consciousness. And dvishatsu upeksha, very carefully he avoids non-devotional association. So with such people, we have to have maitri, friendship. And the Uttamadhikari Vaishnava is one seeing whom everyone becomes immediately inspired to practice devotional service. Very powerful. He sees Stavara Jangama Deki Nadeki Tara Murti, Sarvatra Hoy Nija Ishtadeva Spurti. So when he sees moving and non-moving things, it inspires him to see Krishna in them, or Krishna's mercy or Anukampa in them. So such a person, just by his mere presence, he inspires us. So in such a person, we have to strive to take their association very sincerely, serve them and hear from them. So in this way, three Vaishnavas have to be treated according to their level of development. This is what we saw from Nectar of Instruction also. That Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasti chet pranatibhischa bhajantamisham Shushrushaya bhajana vigyam ananyam anya nindadi shunya hridam hipsita sangalabdya. This is Rupa Goswami's instructions. And then we saw that how do we rectify this offense? This was the last theme that we discussed last time. Rectification of this offense starts with repentance. One should identify that I have done a grave offense and it will really trouble my spiritual life, and therefore one should approach with great repentance. And repentance itself is not sufficient. One should further seek to satisfy the Vaishnava by falling at his feet and offering obeisances, praising him, offering him all kinds of respect, services till he is satisfied. So it's a serious thing. And if the offense is so serious that the Vaishnava is not getting pacified very easily, then we should give up all other engagements, and with great remorse and regret we have to sit and take full shelter of the holy name. But one may say, oh, this third step seems very easy. I can just skip step 1, step 2 and directly do step 3. He says, no, you cannot do that. That will become more severe offense. You are compounding the problem. Just like if someone steals, and if he gets caught, he will get some kind of punishment. If he steals and if he tries to evade the police, run away and try to do different things to hide his own mistake, the longer he does, the greater will be the punishment. So similarly, if one tries to skip 1 and 2, this is crooked mentality. So already he has offensive mentality. On top of that, he is trying to cheat Krishna, cheat the holy name. Oh, I will skip 1 and 2. I don't want to deal with that Vaishnava. Let me directly chant the holy name. That way, the holy name will not reciprocate. And then one should understand that Sadhu Ninda does not discriminate between Vaishnavas. One cannot try to exonerate oneself from one's Sadhu Ninda by finding some fault with the Vaishnavas. By thinking, you have offended a Vaishnava and then you think, oh, you know what? You think he is a Vaishnava? I will tell you his history, what all he has done. Then you decide whether he is a Vaishnava. So we are trying to complicate the whole issue. The easiest thing would be to fall at the feet, beg forgiveness. But if we are trying to justify our own mistake by further finding faults with that Vaishnava, then it becomes all the more difficult. So therefore, the dust from the lotus feet of the Vaishnava does not tolerate. Sometimes the Vaishnava may be kind-hearted, he may forgive, but the dust from the lotus feet of the Vaishnava does not tolerate such offenses, and immediately one tries to fall down from his spiritual position. So therefore one has to be very careful. And one should not think that Vaishnava means he should be like Nityananda Prabhu, who treated Jagai and Madai. Jagai and Madai they tried to harm Nityananda Prabhu, but in return, Markai Premde. Nityananda Prabhu favorably recommended Madai's name for initiation into bhakti. So one should not think that the greater the Vaishnava that I criticize or offend, I should get more mercy. These episodes indicate, the special focus of these episodes is to show the merciful nature of great Vaishnavas, and the purpose is not to actually indicate that the result of Vaishnava aparad is actually mercy. One should not think like that. So in this way we saw these various themes about offenses. And one of the last themes that we want to see is, what is that which makes us immune to committing offenses only? How can we immunize ourselves? Like we all are trying to now immunize ourselves from COVID-19. Everyone is searching for some immunity booster or some, what do you call it, some kind of medicine which can prevent you from getting that COVID. So, what is it that can help us immune to committing Vaishnava Aparadha? So, we need to have an inner wiring. What is that inner wiring that can make a person immune to sadhuninda? That is the culture of respect. If we have a culture of respecting everyone, including small ant, insect, inanimate things, to Vaishnavas, then we are immune. We can't have a completely disrespectful attitude towards everyone, and we can think that I will be very respectful towards the Vaishnavas, I will not commit Vaishnava Ninda. It is not possible. Because it is like a person who says, look, I will join the army, but every day I will not come for exercising, I will not come for the parade, I will not come for the training. Directly on the day of war you call me, I will directly come, take the gun and shoot everyone down. Is it reasonable? If he has not trained day in and day out, he will not be physically fit, he will not be emotionally fit, he will not be psychologically fit to see a battlefield. So therefore, to think that I will directly come on the day of battle and shoot everyone down is his own illusion. That illusion will be exposed in a few seconds only. The moment the phone call comes, he will be exposed. He will wet his pants immediately, because he has not been trained at all to see the battlefield. So therefore, similarly, if we don't immunize ourselves by trying to develop a culture of respect towards all living entities, when it comes to Vaishnavas, we will find it very difficult. It will be so unnatural for us to act that way. It will put a lot of pressure. So therefore, in bhakti, therefore throughout Bhagavatam, if you see in many cases, this aspect of respect is brought again and again. Whenever a discussion on bhakti comes, in the 3rd canto, 29th chapter, when Kapiladeva is describing to Mother Devahuti about the nature of bhakti, after describing different types of bhakti and then describing Shuddha Bhakti, he talks about respect. Then Rishabhadev in the 5th canto, in instructing his sons about bhakti, after describing bhakti, he talks about respect. Uddhava in the 11th canto, after describing to Krishna, after describing to Uddhava about the nature of bhakti, talks about respect. Why? Because in such a bhakti, offense creates restriction, and offense generally arises from disrespect to great devotees. And therefore, even though many such devotees exist, but they may be very difficult to see. So therefore, in order to avoid, and who will become a devotee in future, we do not know. If you see, according to Siddhanta, potentially everyone can become a devotee in future. Everyone is a potential devotee. So therefore, you offend someone now, you show disrespect to someone now, in future if he becomes a devotee, what will happen to you? So therefore, in order to avoid offenses to them, one should pay respects to all living entities, thinking that the Lord is present in all of them. Without doing so, whatever devotional service that we may perform, the Lord will not give any result. So therefore, it is like, I remember once His Grace Radha Gopinath Prabhu, one of the senior most brahmacharis in the temple, in Chowpatty temple, he was sharing this story. The first time he joined the ashram, after he joined the ashram, after he first got Brahmin initiation, he first entered the altar and he was going to be trained by none other than His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrit Swami Maharaj, at that time Devamrit Prabhu. So he was going to be trained in deity worship. So at that time, on the altar there were lights, but the switches of those lights for aesthetic purpose were just below, just near the foot. So it was like a foot switch. A foot switch means you are supposed to switch it on with your foot. So Bhakti Rasamrit Swami Maharaj said, first as soon as you enter the altar, you have to switch on the light, because you cannot touch the deities or approach the deities when it is dark. So he said, please switch on the light. So Radha Gopinath Prabhu went and just kicked the switch and switched it on. And immediately Maharaj chastised him and he said, how could you switch it on with your feet? And he said, what is the problem? It's a foot switch. It is meant to be switched on using your feet. And he said, no, this is not your bedroom, but this is the altar of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. Every single thing connected to the Supreme Lord cannot be disrespectfully dealt with. You have to use your hands to switch it on, even though it may be at a low-lying place. This was the first thing. So, anything connected to Krishna, actually everything is connected to Krishna only, because He is the source of everything. So therefore, how prone are we to committing Vaishnava Aparadh? We can see about how, by evaluating ourselves, how we treat ordinary things also. So we may want to roll a chatai or a mat for sitting. So we may roll it, and whatever left over, if we kick that chatai and open it, try to open it, that is a very disrespectful way of treating it. So these are symptoms that we have very low immunity against Vaishnava Aparadha. Or if we are in the bathroom and we want to move the bucket, we use our feet to move it. It is again, we may say, what is the big deal? It's just a bucket. And as they say, kick the bucket. I'm not kicking it, I'm just moving it with my feet. But still, when you could as well move it with your hands, if you are moving it with your feet, it indicates, it may be something very simple and superficial, but it has a very deep-rooted indication that probably we have low immunity towards committing Vaishnava Aparadha. So these are small things which we can observe. How do we treat our subordinates at home, at office? How do we treat our servants? How do we treat people who are working under us? How do we treat our equals who may not be devotees? How do we treat insects? These all indicate our immunity towards committing Vaishnava Aparadha. So therefore, a culture of respect makes a person immune to Vaishnava Aparadha. So Kapila Dev, we will go through a series of verses very quickly in the 3rd canto, 29th chapter, where he addresses this theme of Vaishnava Aparadha. He says that aham sarveshu bhuteshu bhutatma vastita sada tam avagyaya mam martyah kurute archa vidambanam. So he says that I am situated, aham bhutatma, I am the soul situated in all living entities, sarveshu bhuteshu avastitah, situated in their hearts, martyah mam avagyaya, that person who disrespects me by disrespecting the living entity. So if you are disrespecting a living entity, then you are not seeing that in the heart of that living entity, I am present as the super soul. Then he says, kurute archa vidambanam. Archa vidambanam means your performance of deity worship or worshipping the deity is all false. I don't take it seriously at all, he says. And then he says, Yomam sarveshu bhuteshu santam atmanam ishwaram hitva archam bhajate maudyad basman yeva juhoti saha. Again he mentions the same point. if you are not seeing my presence in the heart of that living entity and disrespect it, then your practice of deity worship is like offering ahuti not in fire but in ashes. Basmani eva juhoti saha. In order to get the right result of a particular yajna, the oblations have to be offered in the sacrificial fire. You cannot expect to get the result after the fire has completely died off and only ashes are left. You put swaha, swaha on the ash, you will not get any result. Because it is the sacrificial fire which carries the oblations from you to whomever you are offering it to. Dvishatah parakaye ma manino bhinna darshina bhuteshu baddha vairasya namam na manaha shantim richati. And such a person who by hating other living entities, by envying other living entities, is indirectly envying me. Such a person, his mind will never be peaceful. Even though he may be worshipping my deity form, but he is not recognizing and appreciating and respecting my form as the super soul present in every living entity's heart. Aham uchchavacher dravyaihi kriyaya utpannaya nage naiva tushye archito archayam bhuta grama avamaninah. You may be using the best of the ingredients. You may purchase it from, you may get the dates from Saudi Arabia. You may get the grapes from Nashik. You may get pomegranates from Iran. You know, the best of the ingredients from the best of the places, and you may try to worship me. But in trying to do that worship, if you are treating your servant in a very disrespectful way, I don't accept that worship at all. Because, so this is what Kapila Dev says. Because eventually Kapila Dev knows that if this person has this disrespectful disposition towards other living entities, he will eventually end up committing offense towards my Vaishnava, and I cannot tolerate it. So therefore, this is an instruction with great anger Kapila Dev is speaking towards his devotee, that don't ever disrespect anyone, because that habit will carry over when in your dealings with Vaishnavas also. So therefore, Rahuguna, when King Rahuguna, when he was actually a very nice person. He didn't know that Jadabharat was such an exalted personality. Jadabharat, because of his Avadut lifestyle, he actually did not externally look like a very exalted Brahmana at all. His exalted nature was covered by his dirty appearance and all that. In fact, it is mentioned that his body was so soiled that the Brahman thread was almost black in color. It was the color of his body. He could not even see the Brahman thread. So Rahuguna actually made a mistake. And it could have resulted in very serious consequences. Even though Jadabharat was very merciful, he gave him lot of favorable knowledge to inspire him on the path of bhakti. But Rahuguna knew that he was just millimeters away from falling down from the path of bhakti due to his committing that offenses. He learnt a very valuable lesson in his life, how he should not judge people from their external appearance. So he offered this beautiful prayer to all the Vaishnavas. Namo mahadbhyostu namo shishubhyo namo yuvabhyo nama avatubhyah ye brahmanagam avaduta lingas charanti tebhya shivamastu rajñam. So he says, Namo mahadbhyo. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the great devotees. All the great devotees. Namo shishubhyo. I may not know, they may be in the form of a shishu also. I should not disrespect even a shishu. What if he is a great devotee? Namo shishubhyo. I will fall and offer my obeisances to the Shishus also. Namo Yuvabhyo, he may be a young person also. Even though he may not right now be showing symptoms of being a devotee, but he can be a potential devotee. I will offer my obeisances to him also. Nama Avatubhyah. Avatubhya means young boys. They may be playing cricket, playing kabaddi, whatever, but they may become great devotees. Who knows? I will pay my obeisances to them also. Ye brahmana gam avaduta lingas charanti tebhyah shivamastu rajñam. These brahmanas, and I definitely offer my respects to these brahmanas who are wandering around in avaduta vesh, because of which I could not identify Jadabharat as a great devotee. But I pray and fall at his feet and ask him, you can give me some punishment, but please don't punish the whole Kshatriya race. I made a mistake, and in future other Kshatriyas will also make a mistake, but you please understand, we don't want to disrespect any Vaishnavas, but just that because I could not identify you as a great Vaishnava, so I made a mistake. And then he has not just taken, accepted forgiveness, asked for forgiveness, but he is also telling, henceforth I will not make this mistake. I will not judge anyone seeing their external appearance. I will see everyone as a potential devotee and I will offer my obeisances. Or at least I will offer my mental respects to them. So, very valuable lesson here given by Srila Rahuguna, that don't judge anyone seeing his external. Better show your respect to everyone. So, therefore, if you see in the subsequent verses, so therefore the point is, Sakale samman korite shakati dehonata jata jata tabeto gaibo harinama suke aparada habe hata. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Sakale samman korite shakati dehonata. My dear Lord and Master, please give me the strength to show respect to all. But jata jata, as per their devotional development, I should be giving respect to all. So, tabeto gaibo harinama suke, only then will I be able to chant the holy name happily, aparada habehata, without any offenses. So therefore the Vaishnava understanding of respect is not a very stereotypical understanding. Whomever you see offer obeisances. That is not the Vaishnava understanding of respect. That is why actually it is a great science. Therefore it is not easy to actually accomplish it. One needs actually a very strong sense of devotional sensitivity to actually show respect. Sakale samman korite shakati dehonata jata jata. As per their development of consciousness, one should show respect. Therefore, again and again this theme keeps on repeating in Bhagavatam. Kapila next speaks about the gradation of consciousness of living entities. He says, Jiva Shreshta hi ajivanam. One should see living immovable entities are superior to withered ones. For example, you have dried grass. Better than dried grass is living grass. So he is slowly establishing the gradation of consciousness of living entities so that we show respect according to their level of development of consciousness. Jiva Shreshto hi ajivanam. Dried, dead grass, better than that is green living grass. Supir tata pranabhrito shubhe, he says. Better than green grass are living stones. Some stones which are used for making the deities, they are living stones. They have life in them. So they are better. So they should be given more respect. In this way he continues. I will not go through all the verses. We are already running short of time. And then eventually he comes to Rupa Veda Vidastatra Tatascha Ubayato Datah Tesham Bahupada Shreshtas Tato Chatushpadas Tato Dvipat. He says, superior to them are those with many legs, Bahupadah, and superior to them are Chatushpadah, four animals. Four-legged animals are more developed in consciousness. Better than four-legged animals are two-legged animals, human beings. Tato varnascha chatvaras tesham brahmana uttama brahmaneshu api vedagyo hyartagyo abhyadikastata. He says, tato varnascha chatvaras. Amongst human beings, those who are within the varnashram system, they are better. Tesham brahmana uttama. Amongst the four varnas, a brahmana is better. Brahmaneshu api vedagyo. Even amongst brahmanas, one who actually knows the Vedas, he is better. Hyartagyo abhyadikas tatah. One may know the Vedas, one may chant the Vedas, but if one amongst them, he who knows the meaning of the Vedas, he is still better. Arthagyat samshayat chetta. There may be many people who know the meaning of Vedas, but when it comes to practical application, how do I apply this principle and solve a practical problem of mine, they may not be able to tell. So therefore, a samshayat chetta, one who is capable of solving the doubts, practical doubts of a person by using the Vedic knowledge, he is still better. Tatashreyan swakarma krit. And there may be many people who know the Vedas, who may know its application, but they may not be perfectly following their Brahminical duties. So therefore, better than that is a person who is, apart from knowing how to apply the Vedas, he is also following his Brahminical duties diligently. Mukta sangas tato bhuyan. Amongst those who are perfectly following their Brahminical duties, a person who has become completely detached from this material world, he is still better. Adogda dharmam atmanaha. And he does not enjoy the fruits of his activities, he is concerned only about liberation. Such a person is still better. Tasman mai arpita ashesha kriyayartha atma nirantaraha mai arpitatmana pumso mani sanyasta karmana na pashyami param bhutam akartus samadarshana. In essence, he says, but a person amongst all these, even best of the Brahmanas, a person who has surrendered everything unto my lotus feet and he is worshipping me, giving up all other kinds of non-devotional activities and dharmic activities, such a person is the best. Okay? He who thinks that the Lord alone inspires his bhakti and who identifies with others' happiness and distress, he is very compassionate towards other living entities, and he has this genuine desire of sharing the bhakti that he has with other living entities. Such a person is the best of all. In this way, gradually, Bhagavatam in many places establishes this hierarchy of living entities according to the consciousness that they have. So this indicates that respect has to be according to the development of consciousness. So if we don't have this basic, if we don't cultivate this habit of respecting everyone, we should understand that we are having very low immunity towards offending Vaishnavas. So therefore, one has to act on the grassroots level to eradicate this problem. So this is the next theme that I wanted to discuss about how disrespect, developing a culture of respect actually acts as the immunity booster against Vaishnava Aparadha. Day to day, small things with ordinary people, with ordinary things, how we deal with them actually is very clearly indicative of our immunity towards Vaishnava Aparadha. So we will end this theme on Vaishnava Aparadha with very beautiful instructions by Srila Ramanujacharya to his disciples. How? This is especially important because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took two principles from each sampradaya. When he incorporated the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, he chose two principles from each Sampradaya. And from Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, he chose the principle of Vaishnava Seva and pure devotional bhakti, pure devotional service. Anyabhilashita Shunya Jnana Karma Dhyanavrita Bhakti. These two principles he took from the Sampradaya of Ramanujacharya. So Vaishnava Seva being a very important aspect from the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, there are every Sri Vaishnava temple you go, there is Tadiya Aradhana. Tadiya Aradhana means worshipping the Vaishnavas by giving them sufficient respect, by honoring them. Of course, in today's day and age, Tadiya Aradhana literally means distributing prasad, which is a very good way of honoring Vaishnavas, because prasad means mercy of the Supreme Lord. But Tadiya Aradhana means actually honoring and respecting Vaishnavas. That is very much emphasized in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, and therefore Ramanujacharya has indicated 12 types of Vaishnava Ninda, which one should try to carefully avoid. So, very important point to note. So, most likely we will have time to complete this, and then tomorrow we will start with discussion on the second offense. So, he says there are 12 reasons why we can offend a Vaishnava. First is called as Janma Nirupan. Janma Nirupan means respecting or disrespecting a Vaishnava because of his high or low birth. You give someone more respect because he is born in a very high Brahminical family. That is wrong. Respect should be for one's devotional development and not for one's varnashram status or birth. So therefore, if you respect someone more, you may have two devotees, two Vaishnavas who may be equally developed in their Vaishnava qualities or Vaishnava devotional development. But if we give more respect to one person because he is from a high birth and the other person is from a low birth, we give him little less respect, that is Vaishnava Parada. So this is called as Janma Nirupana. The second is Sharira Nirupana. To disrespect someone because of his body. Like for example, Hanumanji was just a monkey. His Grace Gaurang Prabhu was sharing once in his class that throughout Ramayana, there is only one place where Hanumanji is addressed as a monkey. Even though he did look like a monkey, but there was only one place where he was addressed as a monkey, and that was addressed by Mother Sita. One may wonder, of all the people, was it Mother Sita who addressed Hanumanji as a monkey? There is a reason to this. Because after the whole battle of Lanka got over, after Lord Ram had won the battle and they were now planning to go back to Ayodhya, at that time Hanumanji approached Mother Sita and he told, "My dear mother, I saw how all these great Rakshasas and Rakshasis tortured you. So I want to, even though we have won the battle, I have this personal desire to take revenge on these people. I want to show them, I want to give them lot of suffering in order to exact revenge for what they have done to you." And in detail he describes how he wants to torture them. And Mother Sita, being the universal mother, she cannot tolerate the suffering of other living entities, even though they have given her suffering. So she becomes little annoyed. And because Hanumanji being her dear son, she, in a critical way, in a loving but critical way, she addresses him as a monkey. as Plavangama, like that. So this is the second reason why one could disrespect someone. Like for someone may disrespect Garudaji because he is a bird. He may be in the form of a bird, but he is the Lord is not moving around on our shoulders. He is moving around on Garudaji's shoulders eternally. He is the eternal carrier of the Supreme Lord. So this is the second reason for disrespecting someone because of his body or his species. Third is Bhava Nirupan. Bhava Nirupan means disrespecting someone because of his age. Like Suruchi disrespected Dhruva Maharaj because of his age. Of course, at that time Dhruva Maharaj was not a devotee yet, but nevertheless, one might think, oh, 5 saal ka bacha is just 5 years old. Why should I take his words very seriously? So Bhava Nirupan, this is third reason why someone could show disrespect to a Vaishnava. The fourth reason is Ashrama Nirupan. Ashrama Nirupan means to consider someone qualified or unqualified because of his ashram. We see in the case of Dhanurdas, or he is also called as Villidasa. He was one of the foremost disciples of Ramanujacharya. So, but he was a Grihastha. Not only was he a Grihastha, but prior to joining Ramanujacharya, he was attracted to a prostitute. But eventually Ramanujacharya transformed his heart and he came and stayed in the mutt of Ramanujacharya along with his other disciples who were all brahmacharis and sannyasis. But we all know this story that they would criticize him and disrespect him because he was a grihastha. But Ramanujacharya taught them very valuable lessons, unparalleled in the history, to show that how one's ashram does not determine one's level of progress. So therefore, this is Ashrama Nirupan, to consider someone unqualified to practice bhakti or unqualified to practice bhakti at a high level because of his ashrama. The fifth reason is Avayava Nirupan. Avayava Nirupan means disrespecting a Vaishnava because of his bodily deformities. We all know this story of how when once Sri Rupa Goswami was meditating on a very sweet pastime of Krishna in Vrindavan, and when he was meditating on this pastime, a juncture came when there was a very sweet but funny exchange between Radharani and Krishna. And seeing that pastime, he started smiling or laughing. At that very moment, there was a Vaishnava who was lame. So he was walking in a very unwieldy manner. So Rupa Goswami was smiling because he was meditating on this pastime, but the Vaishnava thought that he was smiling at his physical deformity. So even though a great personality like Rupa Goswami can never commit such an offense, but nevertheless, he lost his meditation. Just to teach us the valuable lesson. Then he goes to Sanatan Goswami and Sanatan Goswami says, look, maybe some Vaishnava would have been displeased with you. You now cook a big feast and invite all the Vaishnavas of Vrindavan to come. And then we will find out. So he calls all the Vaishnavas, and in the meantime Sanatan Goswami goes and checks out who all have not come for the Bhandara or the feast. And there was this one lame Vaishnava who didn't come. And he goes and asks, oh, there is a feast. Rupa Goswami has called for a feast. Why you are not going? And then he expresses his displeasure. And then immediately Rupa Goswami goes and begs forgiveness, and then the whole thing gets resolved. But of course, such kind of, these pastimes are there just for us to learn the valuable lesson of how serious it is to disrespect a Vaishnava and commit an offense to a Vaishnava. But of course, great devotees like Rupa Goswami can never offend Vaishnavas. The sixth principle is Alasya Nirupan. Alasya Nirupan means to disrespect someone because of his habits. We all may have different kinds of idiosyncrasies, habits that we may be carrying from our past lives. So, if some unfavorable habit is seen in a Vaishnava, to judge him as being an inferior Vaishnava because of his habits is an offense. This is Alasya Nirupan. Second is Vasa Nirupan. Vasa Nirupan means, I'm sorry, some mistakes in my cut paste because last minute I was adding these slides. Vasa Nirupan actually means to consider someone as being very qualified because he stays in a dham, and to consider someone else as being less qualified because he lives in a city. This is an offense, Vasa Nirupan. And the next is called as Bandhu Nirupan. This is very serious, we should pay very careful attention to this. Bandhu Nirupan means disrespecting a family member who may be a Vaishnava because we consider, oh, he is just my son, he is just my daughter, he is just my wife, she is just my wife, or he is just my husband. So, because we see them day in and day out, we may be seeing their faults also, their weaknesses, their idiosyncrasies and all that, and we may take them for granted, because of which if we offend them, it is called as Bandhu Nirupan. Disrespecting a Vaishnava because of his being a family member. This can also lead to serious consequences. The ninth is called as Prakasha Nirupan. Prakasha Nirupan means to respect only one's Guru. Amar Guru, Jagat Guru. Rest all useless. If one thinks like that, if one respects only the Guru and disrespects everyone else, this is called as Prakasha Nirupan. This is also on the bodily platform, and this is very lamentable state. The 10th is called as Prakara Nirupan. Prakara Nirupan means to respect only those people who are very close to his Guru and to disrespect everyone else. First was Prakasha Nirupan was this, respect only the Guru and no one else. Second is respect only those who are very close to his Guru and disrespect everyone else. So these kind of inclinations are not seen in great devotees. Actually, if you see, the longest part of Bhagavatam, apart from the conversation between Suta Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya, which goes 12 cantos, and the conversation between Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, which goes 11 cantos. If you see, the next longest conversation is between Vidura and Maitreya. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th cantos. 4 cantos it runs. And almost 7th canto also. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Almost 3-4 cantos is the conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. And if you see between Maitreya and Vidura, Maitreya hardly had any association with Krishna. Even in that Uddhava Gita, when Maitreya was also sitting and hearing, Krishna was speaking only to Uddhava. He didn't speak a single word to Maitreya. He didn't even recognize the presence of Maitreya. But Krishna personally visits Vidura's house and he accepts banana peels from Vidurani. That's how much he loves Vidura. He had personal connection with Vidura. But Vidura wanted to hear about Krishna from Maitreya. He didn't see, oh, what does he know about Krishna? I had personal association of Krishna. He didn't see it that way. So this is Prakara Nirupan, to respect only those who are very close to his Guru and to disrespect all others. The 11th is Vartana Nirupan. To insult someone because of their occupation. Oh, you know, this, he may be a Vaishnava, but see what occupation he does. So he can't be a very advanced person. To think like that is Vartana Nirupan. This is the 11th reason. And the 12th reason is Dosha Nirupan. So Dosha Nirupan means to not spare even the great Shastric characters. Why did Draupadi have 5 husbands? Like that to start to find faults even with the Shastric characters. So, this is called as Dosha Nirupan. So, in this way, Ramanujacharya warns his disciples that look, be very careful about these 12 things, because these 12 inclinations to judge someone based on these characters may be very natural for a person. So therefore Ramanujacharya says, be very careful. Be careful to avoid such kinds of offenses. Like that. So with this we will end today's discussion. So we have covered only one offense till now. And of course there are only 3 offenses, 3 of the 10 offenses only are discussed in Madhurya Kadambini by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So we will stick to only those 3 offenses. Wherever I get some additional material, I will present some additional material on those 3 offenses only. And then we will move on. And in a later course, maybe if we get an opportunity, we will discuss about the other offenses. So thank you very much for your patient listening. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Shri Madhurya Kadambini ki jai. Hare Krishna.